going to go straight into the question and answer session. If you have your questions, I want you to feel free, and I'm sure Professor Oyeweso is more than able. Good afternoon. My name is Siyan.
My question is in relation to the Yoruba people in diaspora. The migrants who slavery took all the way to Trinidad and Tobago, Cuba. What effort has been made to document the migratory trends of those people? Thank you.
Good afternoon, sir. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Prof. As a young person, I found out these days that a lot of the new radio stations we have and TV stations now speak. They speak Yoruba. You have news in Yoruba language, and everywhere you go, you're in Tazi, you are anywhere. People tune in, they are listening, and the news is in Yoruba language. But some people have complained that a lot of times, in an effort for those presenters to fit in with the new, electronic generation, you see plenty of slangs, you see it being inserted in it. So some people have complained about that in a way, even though they will claim they are speaking Yoruba, that's still speaking the language. But I think at least there's an effort being made to preserve that language and to make it, to use that, funkify it, to make it more relatable to the current generation. So, sir, what do you think about that? Do you think, that all these kind of people, though they are speaking Yoruba, but they are trying to make it, water it down in a way so that it will be difficult, it will be easier for people to understand? Do you think there should be some sort of censorship, if I may use that word, on how Yoruba is supposed to be used? Do you think using slangs, making it a funkified language will actually affect the language in the long run? Thank you very much.
Bísí Ọládélé lórúkọ mi, ń kọ́ ìwé ìròyìn The Nation. Àwọn kan máa ń sọ̀rọ̀ kan tí wọ́n máa ń gbà wọ́n gbọ́ wípé ìtàn Yorùbá tá a mọ̀ táwọn aláwọ̀ funfun tán kọ́ fún wa ń gbà dé nítorí pé àwọn baba ńlá wa wọn ní ìmọ̀ mọ̀ọ́kọ́ mọ̀ọ́kà láti kọ́ bí Yorùbá ṣe ṣẹ̀ sílẹ̀. Nípàdé ìtàn tó gbajúgbajà nípa Yorùbá táwọn aláwọ̀ funfun kọ nígbà tó dé. He tried to say that the popular Yoruba history is that which was documented by the past, and we just historians, academic historians, only take it from there and work on it. Now, ìdánilẹ́kọ̀ọ́ yìí ló bẹ̀rẹ̀ sọ̀rọ̀ nípa early history, because ibi tí èmi sọ̀rọ̀ kan ní pé báwo ni Yorùbá ṣe ṣe. Ó dàbí wípé àìgbọ́ra ẹni yé, àìgbára ẹni gbọ́ lórí bí Yorùbá ṣe ṣe ó gbilẹ̀ nílẹ̀ Yorùbá. Ìdí èyí la máa rí wípé ìtàn tí Ọọ̀ni bá sọ lórí bí Yorùbá ṣe ṣe ó yàtọ̀ sí tí ọba Benin máa sọ, ó yàtọ̀ sí tí Aláké máa sọ, ó yàtọ̀ sí tí Aláàfin máa sọ. Gẹ́gẹ́ bí ọ̀jọ̀gbọ́n nínú ìtàn, ǹjẹ́ ó ṣeé ṣe nítorí wípé bá a ṣe rí ẹni ọ̀jọ̀gbọ́n tí ṣiṣẹ́ lórí ìtàn, bẹ́ẹ̀ la gbà wípé àwọn ọba wa yàtọ̀ sọ́nà àtọ̀, history and culture. So a lè kó ìyẹn ẹnìkọ̀ọ̀kan nínú kéré. Ṣó wá ṣeé ṣe kí apá méjèèjì, àwọn ọba wa àti ẹ̀yin ọ̀jọ̀gbọ́n nípa ìmọ̀ ìtàn, kẹ́ ẹ papọ̀ kẹ́ ẹ lè fún wa ní the acceptable Yoruba early history that we can be proud of and that everybody can relate with? Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir, for relating our past with our present. I have two questions, and they go just age-wise. Sir, are you aware or do you have an idea of how old these great warriors were during their time when they fought this great war. Then, because I believe they were in their youthful years when they did this thing. And then, among these great warriors, are there records of great women or great women warriors documented also? Thank you very much, Prof.
Ẹ sọ̀rọ̀ nípa òwú púpọ̀, ṣùgbọ́n a máa ń gbọ́ wípé òwú la kọ́dá. Kí ló fà á tí wọ́n fi máa ń sọ wípé òwú la kọ́dá?
I think I should start with the discussion by Olatele. You asked whether there is going to be a synergy between the history we write and the history by traditional rulers. If anything is to go by, there's a difference between the history being told by the traditional rulers and the history of the people. When people pick history from the traditional rulers only tell the story about how his family became rulers in that place. That is the history of the people, as distinct from the history of the rulers. Oftentimes, you find the rulers as strangers, conquerors, warriors, usurpers, who change the course of history and impose their will on history of the people. Before history, let me put it this way. It's not the history being told by Europeans. Samuel Johnson wrote his own. Lucas wrote his own. Olumide Canon, Olumide Lucas. And a number of early historians said we came all the way from Mecca. Some said we came from Sudan. Some said we came from Egypt. And that there's a correlation between traditional institutions of Yoruba people and the institution of. I corrected somebody yesterday at a workshop. So many people told us that our great grandfather was Nimrod or was Namurudu, or the rest of it. Said all those history today, they are fictions. They are parts of history generated in immediate post-Islam era, the golden age of Islam, when Islam was a fashionable religion and people want to link, and is inserted in history is what we call hermetic hypothesis. When they see the light skin as harbingers of civilization, and so the Igbo people call themselves the Jews of Africa. They have linked themselves also with Israel. Some other people have linked themselves with Nero. And some said they are the lost tribe of Solomon, and so on and so forth. Anybody can write whatever he likes. But that does not mean it is history. We must separate myths, legends from history. So people who say that, people accept that as if they are talking history. And my history class starts from with the early man. People say Adam is the early man in Christian Bible and in Muslim Quran. Where is the early man? The early man, by all record of science, by all archaeological excavations, did not emanate from Sudan, from Egypt, from Palestine, whether it's the Israel Palestine or the Muslim Palestine. The earliest man accepted by Western scholarship was at Kenya, Oduwa Gorge, East Africa, through the works of Leakey. And nobody has supported that explanation. Then we choose to believe what we want to believe because we are Muslim and Christians. And the scripture says we must believe. For us, that is not history. It is mythical history, prehistory. Ile-Ife, with due respect, is Ife Odaye, Ibi-Oju-Motimowa, land of the ancients, where the works of civilization was first begun. We have conducted archaeological excavations all over Nigeria. The earliest man was not found in Ile-Ife. The earliest man in Nigeria was found at Obaile near Akure by science of archaeology. We are not reinventing it, but if you say you are the oldest civilization, that is the account you want to render. But if you are coming to real academic history, will tell you no. Akomu, very close here, yields even earlier dates in terms of human habitation, even than Ile-Ife. I'm not an archaeologist. I'm just a historian who employs multidisciplinary and transdisciplinary approach to scholarship. It is said that Owula Kokoda Bledowu Ebiru. It is a saying. The who pride itself as the ancient of civilization. How did Owu begin? You are talking about Oduduwa myths. And by the time you are talking about Oduduwa myths, you are going through a lot of myth and upon myth. Oduduwa, is he a man? Or was he a man or a woman? If you go to Benin Republic, the image of Oduduwa is female. And you can read the works of Biodun Adediran, who conducted extensive field works on history of the Western Yorubas, and Professor Ashiwaju will also give you additional data on Yoruba. In fact, in 1976, Professor Ashiwaju conducted a field study on Oduduwa traditions and politics of ownership among and the more you do, and that's why professional historians, you leave them with their hierarchy. The concept of Yorubaland is our creation. Each king had suzerainty over his own land. It is only by conquest that you move the domain, and that is why I said the only empire remains Oyo Empire, and it extended up to Atapame, Togo, up to Dahomey, up to Egba, and you know that Lishabi, the liberator, secured the independence of the Egba people at a stage in their history. And you know, if you read Akinjomi, Dahomey and its neighbors, that eventually what you call Alada, Weda, and all the rest of it, they were the initial kitchen of Alaafin. Eventually, they were able to secure their independence away. So, when, in spite of that, the Alaafin did not call himself Alaafin of Oyo Empire, it is Alaafin of Oyo. So, you look at the title. So, the politics of seniority about ownership is a different level entirely. And for us as professional historians, we try to leave that, let them tell their story and then to do it. Now, how many of us were in Nigeria before? Even in the institution of ownership, in a republic. Nigeria became a republic in 1963. Can you find monarchy in a republic? Professor Akiyide Osuntokun has provided, as I said, a king, a republic of 1,000 kings or 2,000 kings. Because kings have been replicated everywhere. You know, if you know colonial history of Nigeria, that Igbo don't have kings. They just look at, okay, I like your face. You are going to be my warrant king, warrant chief. All the warrant chiefs today are now Igbo one, one, and so on and so forth. In the same way, in Yorubaland, they are multiplied kingship and people who have the right to wear beaded crowns. And you can see the different type of crowns that I imagine in Yorubaland. So, if you are interested in that, those people will tell you how they came about their crown. And for professional historians, we don't have into the politics of men, except that person does not learn history at the feet of great masters. So, but for others, question you ask me, after the camera have been put on, I will live with you properly so that we know all that. Allah is owner of the palace. Nobody can contest that. Or name of Ife. Alake of Abeokuta, Alake of Aki, from Alake of Aki to Alake of Abeokuta. So, we will not give you any book, but we ask you to go and read Saburi Yoruba, who was a background, or read Adesape, so that nobody will accuse you. Or read Ashiwaju, Professor Ashiwaju, in 1979, Touch Bearer Society of Abeokuta commissioned him, and he did a good study on the institution in Yorubaland. That is 100 years, from 1830 to 1930. So he did a good study how the institution of ownership evolved in that particular area. Yes, my sister, there are women heroines that have been quite documented. A woman trader was also a warrior. Like the princess Amiyalode was Madame Tinubu, who was a woman who made a success in Lagos and was eventually banished to Abeokuta, and she died there in 1872. That's almost that was one woman warrior in Ibadan history. The conspiracy against Sekujita Alimura has been well documented in the literature. In the patriarchal society, the woman who made fortunes, who supplied them, gave them free, and at the stage, look at the excesses of these people. And one way or another, the military generalissimo of that age dealt with that, and eventually it is known to history. Akinwumi Sola has popularized a particular version. So that if you want to know the other version, you have to go into the literature. And a lot of works have been done by Mrs. Professor Bolande Awe on women's study. Larry Denter too has done very good study on these women. There's no way war can be fought without women. Even in ancient history, Moremi was a warrior and a spy. You know, if you are familiar with the history of Moremi Ajasho of ancient Ife, who changed identity and got married to the Olugu of Ugbo, learned the secret and leaked the secret to Ife. Till today, you don't find that in Ugbo people. They don't like complexioned women. they run away from beauty because they know what happened to them. You see, Oladide, just one last point on your area. Ife history. If you want to look at Ife history quite well, it is not from where it took Ife history from Oduduwa era. There are 3 Oduduwa communities in Yorubaland. Siyan was the first person to do a very authoritative study of the pre-Oduduwa communities, which was later elaborated upon by Shola Olowala. His PhD thesis was on the pre-Oduduwa communities in eastern Yorubaland. He just left the services of Ekiti State University recently, one of our great teachers. And Professor Akinjogbe himself returned to the same source, Ife history, before Oduduwa. There's a special edition of the Journal of Historical Society of Nigeria dedicated to the pre-Oduduwa Ife. Ever before Oduduwa, there were 13 autonomous communities, 13 kings in Ile-Ife, and with Oba Ife as their head. So Oba Lisun, Oba Loran, and all those Obas that are just recently elevated. They were the prehistoric communities, crown heads that Oduduwa unified into one, and it became their supreme head. And that will tell you the significance of Adiare, because Adiare belongs to Obatala. And in the annual Olodo festival, you realize that there's always a mock battle between the Oni and Obatala. So it symbolizes the takeover of Ife community by another set of rulers. I won't go much into that Ife history for some other reasons, but at least that is a convenient history which is also acceptable to Ife. I've answered your question. The age range, only young men fight wars. You see, you are asking me how the transformation of from military republicanism to civil institution. When in the old Ibadan, when you are young and virile and you could still fight battles and you still go to wars, you must go to war and you must win wars. Yes. That's the golden rule. But when you are expired and you are tired, you now move to the civil line. And that is why the Oba of Ibadan, Olubadan of Ibadan, oftentimes they are old men. Because you must first fulfill the military ranks, complete the ladder, then come to the civil line. You understand what I'm saying? So only young men belong to the military. But by the time you start counting your steps in the civil line, you're already an old man. It is very easy, it's very difficult unless they amend the Ibadan traditional law. It is difficult for a young man of 50 or 60 to emerge as a man. So, what we just encourage people, media practitioners, to do is to have pure Yoruba where people will speak Ijile, and where you can have your slang. The reason is this: people pick from you and they believe they are right. And it's so difficult to please complete it. Ojú ẹ̀ ló fọ́. Igi gogoro má bù mí lójú mọ́ See, you must teach people the real language. And that is the purpose of radio, because you have many listeners. Millions are listening to you, not thousands. Because anywhere on your phone, in your car, you can watch, you can listen to the radio anytime. My brother, you asked whether the history of the diaspora has been documented. The little that can be done and the more that can be done has been done and is still being done. Tunde Babawale, former Director General SIBA, really promoted Brazilian heritage and the connection between Yoruba people. I was privileged to travel to Brazil on a couple of times. And you find out that if you get to Sao Paulo, the routes here, they don't allow you to cross because of the illegal cocaine trade. You first travel to Brazil to South Africa. From South Africa, the next port of destination is Sao Paulo. From Sao Paulo, you can connect by air. Sao Paulo is pure white. Then when you get to Bahia, you pick the lady next door, or the girl next door, the man next door. They look like you. Then you can only connect with them in terms of culture and religion. Akara is called Akaraje. Akaraje. And Akamu. You still find that they still take your local tea, they still take food, and they still worship the local deity more than we do here. They still worship Shango, they worship Oya, depending on the community from which they left. What they took away at that time, they still connect with that culture.
Mo dúpẹ́ pé ìlú ìgbà tí a ṣe ń ṣe kan tí a ń ṣe lé nítorí pé nígbà tí mo wà kékeré ní 1960 sọ yẹn mo máa ń rìn láti ìnàlè dé lítọ́ náà láti sọ history náà ní láti ìnàlè dé láti máa wo bí wọ́n ṣe ń kọ́ gbogbo àwòsí mo máa ń wò bí wọ́n ṣe ń kọ́ títí tó fi débi tó dé so ẹ̀kú àtòtònù àtàrọ̀ nǹkan tí mo fẹ́ sọ dàbí pé òtútù ti kó sí mi láyà díẹ̀ nǹkan tí mo fẹ́ sọ ni pé tọpasẹ̀ oríkì nínú ìtàn nínú gbogbo ọ̀rọ̀ tẹ́ ń sọ nítorí mo rí pé èmi àti ó dàbẹ̀ pé ìkan náà láti wá nífẹ̀ẹ́ ní mí o ṣùgbọ́n tí bá máa ṣe sọ oríkì nínú ìsìn ẹ̀rí pé a tán torí máa ní èmi ni ọmọ onífẹ̀ẹ́ àgbò rẹ̀ níbi ojúmọ́ tí mọ́ wá ọmọ arúgbàdo làgbò ó torí gbúràn ọlágbẹ́lẹ́dẹ́ ọmọ tìmìtìmì ọ̀tọ̀ níjọ́ níjà oníkó máa jà ọmọ tìmì àgbàdà irú ìyẹn ní ìsìn báwo ni a ṣe lè lò ó láti fi mú ìdí ìtàn wa múlẹ̀ nítorí eléyìí ó ṣe kókó fún èmi àti ẹ̀mí tẹ́jókòó ẹ ṣé.
I actually have 3 questions.
Okay.
The first one, is it actually right for us to say that we defeated the Fulani? Because Professor Banji Akitoye has actually made it known to us that those that actually invaded us were actually Yoruba under the guise of the Fulani. And the Fulani expansionist and domination agenda is still very rife, even till today. So I would like to know their own perspective, if you know it, of that particular episode in our own history. It is important for us to know not only the stories of the conquerors, but that of the conquered as well. So I'd like to know how they interpret the events of that time. The second one, is, do we have any history of naval warfare in Yorubaland? There's a lot of rivers that goes around Yorubaland, our equivalent of people crossing the river to relocate. Do we have any naval admirals in our history or heroes, people who were known for their prowess, for war on our rivers, on our seas? Then the third one. Okay. What were the existing alliances in wartime in Yorubaland? Because in Yorubaland you hear that Shagamu here with the and I think I've noticed that some of these things were results of wartime alliances. So, what alliances existed in those? Because you had small city states, you had small kingdoms as well, and you had the large ones. And I'm sure the small ones.
Let me answer the two before we keep on. Sorry. Now, sorry, to get back to you so that it's a complex question, and let me start. You see, Oriki remains a veritable source of Yoruba history. And some people have done very, very good study. Sources, one of the major publications of the Yoruba research was Sources of Yoruba History, London, Alexander Press, 1973. That's Professor Saburi Deba. But the use of Oriki, very important, not just Oriki, but also Orile. What you have described now, it's not even Oriki. Is Orile. What I don't know is Orile. Each community has its own Oriki and also Orile. Now, let me put it this way. In Ile-Ife, there is Ile-Timi. In Ile-Ife, there is Ile-Timi. If you go to, in Ikoyi, right here, very close to Abu, there is Ile-Timi. If you go to Iperido, the title of the is Trimi. It's the corruption of Timi, right there. And it shows at a particular stage we all connect together. The Yoruba history with the Grand Ife is a settled issue as the fountain of Yoruba civilization, as Oriron, as the dispersal point. At the time when we choose to look at the beginning of another civilization, there have been several civilizations in Yorubaland, what we call Yorubaland, but there was never a Yoruba empire. There was never a Yoruba land in the contemporary sense we look at it today. So that Oriki, if you are not an Oyoman and they refer to you as Esho, it connects a lot of community. Esho kì í gbọ́fà lẹ́yìn, àyàfi tó bá gbọ́ pé níwájú kankan. Because an Esho must never show cowardice. A man of courage, even if an Esho received Aradeba, it means that man was running away. Maybe it was in the front, a gallant warrior. Sometimes somebody described it in the Ofede as an hunter. I said, go and read your history again. The Timi of Ede was originally an Esho. And when you are an Esho, you are part of the ruling family. But they put you there so that you never be able to vie for the monarchy, and you must defend the monarchy. And at this stage, they will post you to the frontier. And that's how Afada was posted to the frontier. Timi, Alakutemi was posted to the frontier to defend the territorial integrity of Odo Empire against Ijesha incursion. So when you refer to an Oriki, Oriki will tell you exactly the connection. Balogun Ibikunle, go and look at the Oriki of Balogun Ibikunle as compiled by I.B. Akinyele. You realize that there is no way any time kama da Tony tani kama de awere to lohun ti do kola ti mi o le loko ti mi o lo ilodo oni Oluwa mi ti de. That is part of it's recorded in Ibadan history. Because Balogun Ibikunle, the Generalissimo at the time decided to wage war against Ede because Ede supported the Jayi during the Battle War of 1854. Of 1844. By 1854, Ede was brought into total submission when no Ede farmer or warrior could move out of Ede. It was surrounded, and the starvation as a legitimate weapon of war, that instrument was used until the team was forced to surrender. And from 1854 till the end of the century, Ede and Ibadan belonged to the same alliance. It was the only magic for Ede to survive at that particular point in time. Modakeke, all your people. But at a stage, Adekunle Abiwila came to the throne. His mother was an Oyoman, and as much as possible, he saw the maltreatment being meted out to the Modakeke. He was friendly with them and built them into personal hands right there. So the Ife revolted against Adekunle Abiwila. They didn't regard him as Anoni. Even in contemporary history, they still find a way of discriminating against Adekunle Abiwila segment of the ruling family in Ife. Because Modakeke sacked Ife 3 different occasions in the 19th century, that they had to move to Isoya, they had to move to Okegbo, and what you call Okegbo, Ifetedo today, even up to the Ondo, you find that Modakeke, Ife people nested there. And that was only Governor McGregor that finally resettled the Ife people around 1903, when Ife, the process of rebuilding of Ife started during the reign of Adelekun Olubushi. Alliances and alignments were never permanent throughout the. You can look at the 19th century where it was in terms of alliances and alignment. No permanent friends, no permanent enemies, permanent interests.
Only by interest.
The Ekiti people and the Ilori people, became friends later on, and that's Professor Banji Akintoye's interpretation of history. An interpretation of history is this way: Ibadan people saw themselves as the policeman of Yorubaland. People appeal to them when they move into Ayi, when they move to Otu. But the Ekiti saw the war eventually in 1877-1878 as a war of liberation, a war of independence. Even if they sided the Ekiti Parapor during the war. So that alliance, when it was easy, Ife allied with Ijebu to destroy Ogun. When it was easy, Ijebu sided with Ibadan. Balogun Kuku of Ijebu, they lived his life in Ibadan here. He was not just a distinguished businessman, he was a trader, war, he instrument of war. So, his own passion of the military in Ijebu started there in Ibadan because they wanted access to the coast, and Ijebu did not want anybody to trade with the coast. So, Ibadan, the military class, the commercial elite, wanted direct access. Ijebu, Bereko tó wọ̀, Àjèjì tó wọ̀ láàárọ̀, ẹ̀fọ́ ni wọ́n fi ṣe lálẹ́. Ijebu was a close community, and if you read the works of Ayodele, Ijebu for greater part of our history was in an age of splendid isolation. It didn't want stranger. Some people say Ijebu Osun, I mean, Ijebu Jesha. Ijebu Oda, Ijebu Osun. Wọ́n ní pé Ijebu Jesha. Wọ́n ní when they want to abuse us, you know, I'm an Oyo man, although if you see aminotion, in Osun, we say there are 3 communities or 4. Oyo 1, Oyo 2, and Ife. Half, Ijesha, half. The 3 territorial divisions in, see, there is always a way in which the Oyo elements relate with one another. Whether you are in the central or you are in the west. Ife, one political party, Ijesha, another domain. If they want to abuse the Oyo man in Oyo, you are indirectly abusing the man from village. Oyo law, Mama Pony. That the Oyo people are very practical, very diplomatic. You cannot pin them down to any specific. Our point is lawyer, won't know. Wọ́n ti fún ẹ ní kòkó tí wàá fi ṣe nìyí, àbí wọ́n ti fún ẹ ní igi tí wàá fi omi kan wọ́n ti fún ẹ. Ọ̀yọ́ tó bẹ̀rẹ̀ inú ẹ̀ lóṣù. Ọ̀yọ́ tó bẹ̀rẹ̀ inú ẹ̀ lóṣù. So there are several pejoratives against Oyo people we developed out of the 19th century Yoruba wars. Èépìn ló sọnù, Ìjẹ̀bú ṣe bẹ́ẹ̀ gbúdò lọ. Èépìn ló sọnù nínú fún àmẹ́fà, Ìjẹ̀bú ṣe bẹ́ẹ̀ gbúdò lọ. Ìgbà òlòlú gbogbo wọn náà ṣe bí ọba. These are pejoratives. Ìgbà òlòlú gbogbo wọn ló ń ṣe bí ọba. So wọ́n ní abimọ́lóhùn a ní akọ̀ǹbàbò èwo ni ó ṣọmọ́nú wọn. So because I'm just talking about pejoratives and what, see, that developed during the 19th century Yoruba warfare. Prejudice. If you like it, accept the prejudice. If you don't like it, don't accept the prejudice. But the prejudice is that the Egba are the first set of people to have civilization. Sunrise in the tropics. Western civilization. Call it any. You see, the Egba man is seen to be generally smart than any other Yoruba people because of their access to education. By 1842, the Christian missions already established right there. The schools, everything. The Egbas had become integral part of Old Lagos. Ibutemeta, when you look at Ibutemeta, you find that the Egbas are there. Even the governor, former governor of Lagos State, Bolaji Johnson, is an Egba man. And Lagos has claimed it today because it was from Ake. The father was from Ake. But the mother needed the coca of Lagos. So it's already integrated into the Lagos segment. But the father owned a pharmacy store, health store in Ibutemeta for several years. And BJ Hotels, Victoria Island, that's the younger sister. They know their family roots. They wrote a women Egba, but Lagos has claimed them. When you made success in Lagos, Lagos will accept you as part of their own. But if you are a failure, they will find a way to deport you. They find a way to deport you one night. So the choice of marriage may not be born out of prejudice. We all have our prejudices. The Oyo woman looks at that girl, the mode of dressing, appearance, is not likely to be able to marry manage this lady or this girl that is streetwise. But the final choice rests with you. If you are capable, tọmọdé bá jẹṣu, àdàjẹ, tó bá gbẹkú, àdàjẹ, tó bá pọ̀yà, àdàjẹ, ìjọ tó bá pa ìdẹ̀gbọ̀n, yóò gbé wá fún bàbá ẹ̀ àti bàbá ẹ̀. So the choice of prejudice, don't do this, that was the world view then. For new generation Yoruba elites that are building mansions, I have my own younger brothers and sisters today that don't even live in Nigeria. They are not interested in your property, they are not interested in anything. They've lost their identity. Married, Syrian, Irish, Britons, right? Egyptians. I'm telling you, they have gone. So the old barriers, old prejudices are breaking down. It is for you to accept this is what I want, and so on and so forth. So have I answered your 3 questions? The neighbor warfare, it depends on our concept of of Yoruba. Do we refer to the Laje and Ijo as Yoruba? You see, the Lajes and Ondo, the Ijos, right from Ikokoda, right there, to Sabome, to Igobini, right there. I've had the privilege of moving, see, Ikale. You saw you have Ikale mainland, you have Ikale on the waters. I had the privilege of conducting research in the early 90s in the entire Ikale land. You have Ikale Meha, that's Ikale Meson, they are the mainland. Then you have the 13. Some of them are in the old Mini Confederation, right there. So if you are privileged to read the intelligence report on Elijah and all the rest of it depends whether they accept themselves as Yoruba or they accept themselves as Ijo. Because even in Ijo, they call themselves, there are some other classifications. Because in terms of neighbor warfare, it's as old as history, well documented in the literature. But it is never warfare in Osun River. No. It is never warfare in Oba. No. Because you have not read that. But it is Lagos. Yes. Because by 1603, we know that the Portuguese and the Benin got to Lagos. They well dated. The modern history of Lagos begins from 1603 when Andres Ushama got to Lagos. And the Benin also found a way of getting to Lagos through the canoe. So all the recent happenings in Ikorodu, in Iba, in Ikando, in Pe, Badagry area, coastal security, marine security in our coastal waters, particularly in Ikorodu, we need to enhance that. It is embarrassing that about saying Ikoliola could be kidnapped before our very eyes. And in Ikorodu today, you have somebody who is called Radu or Radu, who is busy raping women, married women all over Ikorodu, and nothing is happening. In our news report today, one Celestine Okonkwo and his members of his family, 6 in all, including his wife and children, were shot. Dead. Also in Ikorodu. I have a friend that I just advised, won't you relocate from Ikorodu until they can get the peace of Ikorodu? All those young girls kidnapped, also from a secondary school in Ikorodu. So that's part of the threat to the peace of Yorubaland. An injury to one should be seen as an injury to all. Because it happens in Ikorodu, it can happen in Ikebe, in Okitipupa, coastal areas, Yoruba coastal areas. That's what we should know as a matter of fact. So our victory, that's what I've said. The Fulani, go and look at, even go and read Revolution and Power Politics. You will know that the Battle of Oshogbo, the Fulani were defeated. Right there. The Fulani were defeated in Jabumi. But there is always what Prof is doing is to look at the contemporary reality to assess the 19th century situation. In every war situation, look for elements of strategy and saboteurs. We lost Ilorin. Ilorin was a Yoruba state until two major forces, that is Afanya and Sholagberu. Sholagberu allied with the Alim. Alim is an Alim man, and that's how we lost Ilorin. Although the Ilorin people will try and reinterpret their history, Abre Khalif Akbar Al-Ikrum Mumin Ilorin by Abu Ikokoro. That is the official version of Ilorin history. So today, what they have done to the indigenous elements of Ilorin is to destroy the family history of the Afanjas. And when you look at Idiape, where you call the central mosque, the market there, anything around that area is used for government building and government, so that you will not be able to have a normally that is the family house. So I served at the University of Ilorin in my early years. So there is no way you are going to study Yoruba history, not studying the history of Ilorin. And there are two major intelligence reports on Ilorin. That is Elphinstone Jones and Amar Hodge. The one compiled by Elphinstone Jones and the one conducted by Amar Hodge. Right there. So, very important. The saboteurs you talk about today, let me give you an instance so that you know we have a lot of repairs to do. Ofa is an undefined question in Yoruba history. It's only for the first time that the Ofa moved to the mainstream of Yoruba politics. They have always been on the other side. But Ofa had always wanted to be part of Yoruba mainstream. If you read the life and career of Josiah Olawoni, of blessed memory, the Ashwaju of Ofa, he went to jail more than any other person during the nationalist year. He was referred to as a jail board. Jail board. Every moment, they knew that he was the leader who wanted to bring process associates of Chief Obafemi Awolowo for every offense, every little thing, frame him up, he will return to prison. And that was the politics. I just cited, look at, if you know Ede very well, there is a place called Ofatedo. Ofatedo, it was only in the 1890s that Ofatedo was established by Olofa Adebuyi after the sack of Ofa. You see, the Fulani, the Yoruba army were in Ofa. They were in Ikirun. But the British forces said the war camp should be disbanded. The Ibadan forces had to return. By 1892, they wanted to reconcile the crisis between Timilagunju and the townspeople, but the British forces did not allow the Ibadan Allied Army to stay in Ede. They ensured they reached the outskirts of Ibadan. They accompanied them to Ibadan. And at that time, when Ibadan left, the Fulani seized the opportunity to attack Ofa. So the elements that were pro-Ibadan had to move, and they were resettled at Ofatedo. If you know Licious Spring Hotel, now from Licious Spring Hotel up to Ido-Osun, that is what is called Ofatedo. If you know Eri-Osun, today there is a relay in Kwara State. The elements there moved and they were settled at Eri-Osun. So you find that there is a link, a connection between Eriosun and Erile, Ofatedu and Ofa. But when you find Ofa people and Erile quarreling today over band dispute, when you want to travel to Ilorin, you know what we do? We don't take the time. We go through initials to Iraq. You know Iraq?
He doesn't know where to go.
If you don't know Iraq, some people they go show Oya what they Iraq. That is Iraq. So by the time you come out in Iraq, you have put the door behind you. So you will see the past that is living in the present. So the upper people, the Eriosun people, what we preach is that they must learn to live in peace. Ifon Osun and Ifon in Ondo State, they came from the same parent. One in Orolu, local government, and the other one is in Ose, local government in Ondo State. So you will see the connection right there. So naval warfare never developed in, it was cavalry warfare. Oyo was a cavalry power. The Fulani was a cavalry power. Oyo even depended on the Nupe to have access to the office. And Ede was the headquarters, strategic headquarters of Oyo. Whatever you find in Ede, you will find it in Old Oyo, particularly in terms of pre-colonial economy, when Alawi was holding sway. Right now. So, what we have said, if you look at Ibadan today, Ibadan is a melting pot of cultures. Ibadan is not a town. Ibadan is a city of cities where many nationalities have come to seek fortunes, and they have settled there since that time. At the end of the war, by 1886, even the Fulani element in Ibadan were asking Ibadan never to refer to them as administrators again. Emma pe wala lejo mo, awara nila nilu emma pe wala lejo mo. So the reinterpretation of history that the Prof is talking about is something we are seeing. It's interpretative. It's interpretative. The Yoruba people have never been the mainstream of Nigerian politics for long, and they have always discriminated against Yoruba people. Take it from when you know it, from 1946 to 1951. That is 1946, that's the beginning of the Richard Constitution. Look at the size of the West by 1946. And look at by 1963, the West, which was the smallest at that time, Midwest was removed from it in order to deal with Chief Obafemi Awolowo at that time. Though they conducted referendum at that time, the primary political objective was to decimate Awolowo's influence and territory. Right there. Take a look at the creation of state from 1967 till date. You find that no government, civilian government, have been able to create states. All the states created were done by military dictators. And when Lagos State was created on May 27, 1967, the Lagosians felt their come of age. Michael Mobolaji Johnson was initially appointed as administrator before military governor. Johnson was given a one-line vote, 10,000 naira to start the state. Southeastern, East Central State, which was still the war zone, had greater allocation than Lagos State. That's 1967. From 1967, the next state creation, 12 states. And in that 12 state structure, you have the Western region. In Western region, Western state. Western State, Lagos State. Which other state the Yoruba people have? They carve out Kwara, which they believe should be part of the West. The successive Lagos State from 19 to 28 or 30 to 36. How many do you have? You have 5. Right there. Now, the greatest shocker you will receive is when you look at creation of local government and resource allocation. Lagos State, since 1967 or 1970, in particular 72, remains 20 local government and 57 now SCDs. But only 20 can take allocation from the federation account. I was privileged to serve as a consultant to Lagos State government at the end of the 1991 census exercise. Lagos then had 5.7 million population, the highest in the country. Kano had 5.4 million. Eventually, when Babangida created the new state, 44 local governments allocated to Kano, 27 allocated to Jigawa. Lagos State is still 20 today. So at the end of the month, they go to Abuja, they take allocation. That allocation, look at the state of Jigawa today. And we see that Jigawa has greater population than Lagos State. Why we should have 27 local government and Lagos should remain 20. And Kano should have 44. So local government today is a conduit pipe for siphoning the resources of the Nigerian state or some other states in other parts of Nigeria. Then we look at Kwara. Kwara was broken into Kwara and Kogi. Sokoto was broken into 3. Sokoto, Zamfara, and Kebbi. Move from that the old Borno State have been split again into 3. Yobe, Adamawa. So the state, the local government creation has been quite unfair to Yoruba people. And that is why we must now rethink, rejig the Yoruba nation in a way that we can be economically dependent. And we review this current constitution, because if this constitution still remains the primary source of we will still be in a disadvantage. If you have been to Oyeweso has the second largest bitumen deposit in the world, untapped. It's the property of federal government, because after the war or during the war, the law was passed that everything below the ground of federal government. Look at what they did to Ashamu, late Chief Ashamu. He gets him out. What has happened since the exit of the man? The people map. Right from primary school, we have been told that the gold deposits, all mineral resources are available in the Jesha land. What has really happened? So, unless we have to rethink, re-strategize the future of Yoruba nation, the politics of 2019 very, very important to the future of Yoruba race. We must have alternative platform to rethink the future, not just of Nigeria, of Yoruba race. We cannot afford to go back to 1965. 1965, we cannot afford to go back to that particular period when Yoruba people became pawns in the chess game in Nigeria. Look at 1979. Chief Emeka Ojukwu described Chief Awolowo as the best president Nigeria never had. Babangida described him as the main issue in Nigerian politics. That's 1979. If you look at 1973, 1883 and read the judgment, how this gentleman became, 1779, the chief judge at that time, and go and read the judgment when he said the case should not be cited as a judicial precedent. And I've had the privilege of meeting and relating with some of the actors involved. Justice Williams, I've forgotten the first name now. His name is Williams. How they got him, appointed him, and his connection with this family, but they are in this family in Lefe, Manikayode family, and the old politics of that period. Eventually, that's what that Williams was appointed as Chief Justice of Nigeria at that time. So we must think and be reflective. We believe in Nigeria. We believe in the unity of Nigeria. The point is that Yoruba people must never play the second fiddle and allow us to be used against one another as it was in the 60s, as it was in 1979, as it was in 1983, and so on and so forth. When President Oyeweso came in, he came in as a compromise candidate, as at that time, to assuage the feelings of Yoruba people when Abiola was unjustifiably denied the presidency of this country. In spite of the fact there was handshake across the Niger, in spite of the fact that it was a Muslim ticket, the crisis in OPC must be resolved, and particularly close to the two. My next door neighbor in Lagos is Baba Rashid. I live next door, is a fence that separates us. Gani Adams was my student. I had the privilege of asking my student to give him a copy of the Samuel Johnson History of the Yorubas when we enrolled him for diploma program. And that's it was Said Olokoro of blessed memory that was his teacher appointed for him. So, and we have remained very good friends. So for the sake of Yoruba nation, all the actors that cause the division, they know themselves. When they cause the division between the two, how to integrate the young and the old together is the duty of this Dawn Commission. Very, very important. When you have people now invading Yoruba homeland, and how to even educate them so that local disputes, our OPC, do not interfere in personal family issues. They are not hired, they are not rented in a way that they can be portrayed on quote as miscreants. Very, very important.
We thank God that the cloud of darkness has been on this country for some time. It's regularly been lifted by, especially by the Ministry of Education yesterday, the Federal Ministry of Education yesterday, saying that the space should not be taught in schools. As you have rightly said that we may be quite good to that, because the impact of not studying history, of not knowing our history, will have been more devastating on the Yoruba nation than any other, because we have a very rich history, and then the problem we have as a people is that we become, maybe because of the way people we are intellectually endowed in this part of the world, we negatively embrace civilization to our own detriment. And that is fast eroding the history of the people. I will still ask my questions. And a nation that does not know its history, that does not recognize his history, we definitely continue to grow from that place. My question is it possible, sir, because we have had various interpretations of history on, especially, I'm particularly concerned about the Yoruba nation. If you go to Alafin, you will say one thing. If you go to, or you have explained some things. And even our writers of history, including your very self, sir. When I was not here when Professor but Akintoye came here, but I followed the program. The interpretation he gave about the Fulani and the Fulani invasion and another historian, like you explained, that there are elements of subtitles and in amongst us. Is it possible? I'm just using that as an example. Is it possible for our writers of history to come into a consensus and give us an history that cannot be controverted or near perfect? Because we have an analytic race of our children now. If they ask you a question and you give them one story today, and they come across another thing tomorrow and you give them another, they will lose interest, they will think that you are not serious. Is it possible to have for historians to come to a consensus and give us what our history is actually like, so that we can, our children will be able to relate with whatever they see. And I don't know how we can get this, because I don't know where we actually missed it. I remember when we were young, all these traveling theaters used to come to schools to do like a writing center, to act dramas and things like that, which actually helped our knowledge of history and our knowledge of the language. But even the schools that are being built now, they are just they will celebrate a six classroom schools and things like that. I think there's something wrong with us. If you look at the schools that were built by the colonial masters, the government college, the Methodist high school, the Prospect high school, the Boys high school, you see structures that actually allow students to learn in the real sense of the word. But today, even if the traveling theaters are going to come into the schools, where are they going to have their So I think we have a problem, and I also want to put a challenge to the Commission to please bring together this platform to sensitize today's rulers. You mentioned some things about some places that could be designated as tourist centers, where the peace treaty was signed, and all those areas. They said they are looking for internally generated revenue. All these things, all these places, if they are properly designated and captured, can generate funds for them. It can be a place of tourism, or even the children taken from their schools to go and visit. This is where they have a sense of history through that. I think the Gov Commission should use this platform to sensitize them and let them help us, especially. And then I want to ask, is it possible for the intellectuals, the elites, to develop softwares? Because we are in a computer age. Many of these children, I'm particularly concerned about the younger generation. They relate much to the computers. Is it possible that software can be developed concerning the history of Yoruba nation, where their sensibilities and their psyche can be invaded through these computers? Thank you very much.
Sir, when you were talking, what came to mind immediately was the fact that the Yoruba was a creation of Samuel Johnson. with the history of the Yorubas. And if Samuel Johnson was able to weld us together in spite of our differences, will it be possible for the Dawn Commission to now design the essence of the Yorubas? Can we have something that can further weld us together? Maybe we have spoken about the language, something that will introduce the language into schools. We write the history of the Yorubas, as so many people have said, and look for a unifying force. Let us have a Yoruba dream, a Yoruba agenda that will bring about development for the Yoruba people. Thank you.
My name is Wole Oladeji. My question is on the peace treaty that was signed on September 23, 1886. I read somewhere that after the peace treaty was signed, the war still continued for about 7 years. So I would like to know, sir, why and how did the peace treaty fail at the initial stage of its implementation, and how was it implemented? And the second question I would like to ask is, I know we have Universal Declaration of Human Rights, we have a Peace Charter. Is it possible for us in this region to adopt the peace treaty that was signed in 1886 as our own regional declaration of human rights to promote peace and unity in the region? Thank you.
You give us these references, citations, books. Somebody like me, I'm interested in this kind of gathering. I would love to know more of my story. I would love to read literature. But they are not as available as those things I could Google on the internet. I could go to somewhere and visit. These are paperbacks. The books you wrote in 1965. How do I get access to them? I could read Chomsky 1968 on the tab of my button on the phone. So how do we read these things? How do we make it accessible?
My name is Olaji Olateju. I believe to preserve history or to preserve any culture, language is key. I once stumbled on an app that was to teach Yoruba language, and it's funny, the teacher was an American, pronouncing Yoruba in his own way. So how do we have an app that will teach Yoruba with the central Yoruba, so that this, a verified app that will teach Yoruba, so that people won't learn Yoruba the wrong way?
Thank you very much, sir. My one question, I want to find out, is there any history to why we speak Yoruba differently? Because the way they speak Yoruba in Yoruba is quite different from the way they speak it in Oyo State. I want to find out if there is any history to that. The second one is just a form of appeal. I want to appeal to you and maybe some of your colleagues that are vast in history. I want us to leverage on the fact that we are returning history back into the curriculum. I want you and maybe the group of people that will be working on that to help us design what exactly needs to be taught as, in Yoruba history and how it should be delivered so we can get the real message. The last one is just on a lighter note. You talked about Yoruba people, Egyptian people. You didn't say anything about Ondo people. I'm not sure if they did anything. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, so far. My name is Boyega Olonfemi. My question is, you talked about it, but I still want to bring it to the fore about how judges are able to pass judgment on kingship titles with intelligent reports concerning different territories, whereas there are still issues of disagreement even after the parties involved are supposed to depart from the court, based on the fact that we are not seeing that coherence between the town and the gown as far as our history is concerned. Really, I think there is need to really marry the two so that we will not be sitting on kites of gunpowder in assessing our history in the future. Thank you.
My name is Oyeweso. Okay, I just want to, it's like a follow-up to what the other speaker said. When he was talking, he said that we wouldn't allow outsiders to write our history for us. Just yesterday, I met one German lady who said she studied African history and archaeology. Okay, so she said she was going to Ikene to do a number of studies, that she was going to write about power struggle for Ikene monarchs. So I am sure after writing that, after publishing the paper, maybe we're going to adopt it. That's what we rely on as the history. Now, I'm just thinking, there are Africans, there are Nigerians that have studied European history, that have studied American history. I don't know if such people write, such papers are adopted in those lines. So, just want to find out.
I wish to start with the last speaker. You see, when you adopt, you are the person who is choosing to adopt. Nobody is asking you to adopt. History is necessarily written from a point of view. That is, if you want to write official history, there is official history. The official history is that all the families in Ikene will agree that, look, this is the official history of Ikene. But you know, Ikene is a divided community with a number of heads, intellectuals, lawyers. Even while Awolowo was alive, Ikene was still deeply divided. And if you read Olaniwun Ajayi, you read a lot of works right there around Ikene axis. Whether a work is written by a Nigerian, a Briton, or an American, it depends on the area of expertise. It does not mean because you are a black man, or you are a white man, or you are a Caucasian or Indian, you will not be able to do justice to that area. Today, history of Okuku, the best work on Okuku today was written by Karen Baba of the Center for West African Studies at the University of Birmingham. One of the best books today on Chief Obafemi Awolowo was written by Insa Noti, also of University of Birmingham. We were together in another workshop yesterday with Insa Noti. So, with the frontiers of scholarship, you extend frontiers of scholarship so that you do collaborative studies and so on and so forth. So what is official, what is not official, it's not that. It's to open up. People don't open up. When you censor documents from within, we don't know what is in your mind. Look at Idesha today with the number of intellectuals that that country, that Idesha nation has produced. The best book on Idesha history was written by Professor J.D. White, Idesha and Nigerians, the incorporation of the Yoruba kingdom. If you look at Ipetu Idesha, Old Pants, Lillian Trigger, Community Development Association in Ipetu Idesha. And you find Adoko of Iloko, all the other people accepting her, and he spoke extensively it is for that community to accept that a Nigerian can do such work. Then when people come, Nigerians will don't invest in research. I cannot use my resources to invest in internal studies where there are major stakeholders. It's a recent work which is coming out in January 2017, edited by Professor Lokoya again and Nzanote, is on Eden. But the collaborative studies involving several scholars right there. It was funded by University of Birmingham, by European Research Council. So when local studies on communities are not funded by your own government, and you have works being funded by European Research Commission, University of Birmingham, what should you do? Brilliant. My ICA guru, that was my recommendation, 2006, when I delivered my inaugural lecture at the Lagos State University. And I think what we need to do is to readopt that, which is still to be done. That open access libraries is the new thing. Most of our works today, you buy it on Amazon. In fact, at a stage, I wanted to sue Amazon because my works were translated into French in chapters and being sold on chapter basis. Perspectives on the Nigerian Civil War. You understand what I'm saying? So, but if already we put our work open access, people, online version of all the works by Aladimomi Kenyo, who was the traditional historians at that time, all the works by Professor Banji Akintoye and all others, that should be the deep thinking that people should be able to read anything, to read any profit motive. It should be secondary. We want to popularize Yoruba history. And I've said it, most of these bulky documents, they've been shocking. In Nigeria, there is no official history of anything. And I had the privilege to give a lecture some times ago that where is you are waging war on corruption in Nigeria? Where is history of corruption in Nigeria? A 50-page book, 30-page book that we document. In 1966, Justice, that radical lawyer, no, I'm talking about 1966. I'm talking about Ganibayemi. I mean, with Bolaide, he was associated with Bolaide, the mystery gunman. Ayodesho, the mystery gunman. See, Ayodesho convicted C.D. Akran, over C.D. Akran, and Prince Ademidui of official corruption to the tune of 6,000,000, £6,000 plus. The biggest, one of the biggest streets in Lagos State today, who is that? Abakra. It means you say that corruption pays. So how many Nigerians are able to know today that the man looted the treasury of the state and he was convicted for 6 months? So when you don't have history, people replace it with other things. So that's in line with your online version. We need popular history. If you go to US Embassy today, official history of US, you see the flag right there. But we don't have any official history in Nigeria. So everybody writes history as it thinks. Most of the comments that have come in later on, maybe some of them came in later. There is no final history. There is no ultimate history. There can only be an acceptable history. An acceptable history for that period and time. When, if you don't write your history for a particular motive, you are not arriving at a predetermined conclusion. If it is where the evidence leads you to, yes. But if it is premeditated, somebody once commissioned me to write an official history to write for him history of, I will delete the name of that person. And I said, sir, will you allow me to delete room 1, room 2, room 3, room 4, room 5, room 6? Because all the Civil War documents were in his house. But I said I could only have access to this room, and this room. I said, sir, in other words, if I accept that, he has pre-selected, predetermined, pre-programmed certain documents for me, and inevitably I must reach that conclusion. If history is not tilted toward that area, the historian is at liberty. Interpretation is the lifeline of history. No fact. Interpretation. If your interpretation is contradicted by superior evidence later on, because I was not there, he was not there, Etu was not there, the grandfather was not there when. So the way historians write is quite different from the way the physical scientists will write. If you are in a physics lab, light travels in a straight line within homogeneous medium. Law of physics. It stays. Atom was conceived as the smallest indivisible particle of an element which could not be created or destroyed in the course of chemical reaction. But at a later stage, they discovered that atoms could be divided into neutrons, protons, electrons, and other neon and real gases. So, the world of history, where man is observing himself, is different from the world of physical sciences. So, in all what we do, that's Mrs. Additional, that regional integration was the concept of Yorubaland was Johnson. Yes. In 1980, Chief Obafemilo delivered a lecture at the University of Ife, and Miss Watch magazine carried it. A new leader has emerged since Oduduwa. That may not be the correct, so that is the summary of that headline. That ever since Oduduwa, the Yoruba found a leader in Chief Obafemi Awolowo. Chief Obafemi Awolowo now inherited, so to say, a western region, and he governed the western region to the best of his ability and to the satisfaction of all. At a stage in the course of Nigerian history, western region had its own consular office in Britain, and at a stage when federal government was broke, western region loaned money to the federal government. So what we are asking now is that forget about these others. We can bring them, educate them. The others are the sources of division. We need to now bring them together, organize. I proposed earlier on an academy, a Yoruba Academy of Traditional Leadership, where some of these others will come regularly and give them fresh insights into history and culture of their people. When history is good, or when people want to use history, they remember history. When they want to become chiefs, obas, upgrading, they look for documents, they seek your knowledge. But the moment they get there, they forget history. They throw it into the dustbin. So, when another elect does not stay for a day in Ipebi and other elect must be in Ipebi for minimum of 3 months, where will be taught the mores, the values, the tradition, the culture. of the community. It is only after a baby that's when you can now say, yes, I am an Oba. Then we have new tradition over Yorubaland today, where they don't even spend a day and they are proclaimed monarchs. And so we will not take history the way they say it as professional historians. It's our duty to go behind their back because they can only write the history of their family. Even when they write the history of their family, some other people will disagree with them that no, this is not the way history should be written. We are not looking for Yoruba Empire. We are not looking for Oduduwa Republic. We are asking our governors to promote regional integration. If the political leaders today cannot agree on road networks, let's have roads that will connect all the states together. If they can do that, yes, that's regional integration. If we can have universities of excellence, we are okay, University of Technology, and you focus on technology. You know that in the Southwest, if you want to go there, this is where you should go. If you want to go study medicine, this is where you should go. If you want to study law, this is where you should go. So when you look at our faculties today across the Southwest, how many lawyers are in our faculties of law? A number, there was a time when the first generation university was denied accreditation, and the whole student association had to rush in to come and teach pro bono. So there are certain specialized areas that you need experts. That is only when you put the experts together instead of mushrooming the universities. Then if you are in legal profession, let's have one in the Southwest, and then each governor want to create an empire for himself. And look at it, he started since the Second Republic, when Governor Adiparati wanted to establish a university. He allocated one to his community in Abuja. Olabisi Onabanjo, another one in Nagowi, Ambrose Ali in Ekuma. The other universities that came, even Iyamu, you have Ambrose Ali University there, and our governor still chose to create another university in 2016 in Iyamu. So along the line, you just find that ego is a major problem among the governors, and they pay lip service to the concept of regional integration. In Akure, there is an airport. In Ibadan, there is an airport. Which of the airports is up to standard airport? Today, which of them? If you are privileged to visit Doha, the whole airport in Nigeria is like a kitchen. Doha, that's Qatar. Qatar is a small nation. That's Qatar airport. Doha. Doha, just find out, what is our problem? If you are in Africa, that Murtala Mohammed International Airport was modeled after Skipoli Airport. That's Skipoli Airport. What? A few weeks ago, the lights went out in the entire, and people are using torchlights for facilities and all the rest of it. Maybe we need to educate not only the traditional leaders, but also the political leaders. And for that point, I should rest my case.
Thank you very much, Prof. I'm sure you agree with me that was extremely exhaustive. He took his time to address all the questions that were raised. And I'm sure that, as I said when we started this program that you're not going to leave here the same. He has dropped some few words that I'm sure we get back to our various homes and offices. We'll see where we fit in. He has challenged us at dawn, and we're very much aware of the task. And again, we'll put it back to you that with your support and your colleagues, we'll make sure that we preserve our history. We make sure that we tell our story. We don't allow foreigners, we don't allow strangers to tell our story. Again, as I said, one of the key things that, most important things that for me has happened this year was that news that came out yesterday that they now want to bring back the teaching of history in our schools. Again, we're going to enlist your support in developing the curriculum. We are going to insist that our history will be taught. Yes, Nigerian history will be taught, but in this part of Nigeria, we'll make sure we teach Yoruba history. Our children, our grandchildren must know who they are as a people. Once again, I want to thank you for your time. It's been close to 4 hours, but I'm sure you found it extremely valuable. On behalf of, before I actually say on behalf of the Dawn Commission, I'd like to thank our invited guests. Some of them are going to the names, but I'll say thank you, particularly to Mr. Additional. Professor Additional told me to be coming in, and Professor Additional is our sole consultant on this Yoruba conversation. Once again, on behalf of Dawn, I want to say thank you to him, and thank you for showing up, and your sister as well. Thank you for coming. Also, all our other guests, thank you. I'm going to embarrass one of our staff who cover. Today is our last day. Simi. Thank you. And once again, before you leave, we have refreshments and everything. I'll call on Lamide to just give a vote of thanks.
On behalf of the Director General and the entire staff of the Dawn Commission, I want to say a big thank you for your time. We appreciate your the lessons you've given us. Thank you very much. I wish you journey back to your destination. Thank you, sir.
Mo tún gbọ́rọ̀ àgbà dé o. Ẹ jẹ́ tí ẹ gbọ́, ọ̀rọ̀ àgbà bí ó ṣe lówùrọ̀.